Hey, everybody, welcome back. Super excited. I have a special guest because this time it's not a panel. I'm doing a one on one interview with one of our hub partners, a premier hub partner at that. And so, without any further delay, let me introduce this week's guest. I'm pleased to interview one of our Biz Book Pub Hub partners. Our hub partners are experts who support entrepreneurs along their author journey. What if you had a literary matchmaker, a creative consultant, and a publishing powerhouse all rolled into one? That's exactly what today's guest brings to the table. Known as the Dear Abby of Publishing and the Literary Agent Matchmaker, she spent more than 20 years helping writers at every level, whether you're drafting your first chapter, prepping for a publisher pitch, or dreaming of seeing your story on the big screen. She's an award-winning author herself, but she's also the go-to expert behind the scenes, editing manuscripts for publishers, advising literary agents, and helping debut and established authors alike bring their books and platforms to life. Through her company, Your Book is Your Hook, she helps authors navigate every path to publishing, build marketing strategies that last beyond launch day, and even explore how to expand their story into film, TV, and theater. From nonfiction to novels, screenplays to children's books, she meets writers where they are and helps them get where they want to go. She provides writers with the guidance, structure, and industry access to turn creative projects into real world results. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Wilkov. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us. You have such a broad spectrum of work. I can't wait to dive into all that. But before we do, I want to first say welcome again. And then two, how did you end up on this path where you're supporting authors? Like, what was the driving force that got you here? What's the origin story?
So I love my origin story because I actually didn't set out to do this at all. I was a certified financial planner and came up with a book on my own that I wanted to write and create for women. And so at the time, it was 2005, and there weren't a lot of people writing or speaking to women about finances. And I was the first woman to actually write about the emotional impact of money on her. And so what I did was I wrote a cute little book that was 125 pages called Dating Your Money, which was how to build a long-lasting relationship with your money in 8 easy steps. Well, that big bang was pink on the outside and on the inside for her on the finance shelf, where there were green, blue, black, and gray books. So it stuck out like a sore thumb, and it was measured just for her to carry in her purse, her tote bag. Well, that thing took off like a rocket. I didn't even know what I was doing. It was my first book, right? And I had a great team, and that book first became a best-selling book and then an international number one best-selling book in the world. And I had therapists and accountants and lawyers calling me, can I use your book with my clients? And I said, yes. Well, the ironic part of all this is I had a financial planning office. So people started calling my office saying, I want to be you. I was on television, I was in the newspaper, I was all over the place. And they said, I want to do that. I want to have a book. I want to do this. Can you help me do this? And I was like, don't you want a financial plan? This is a financial planning office. No, I don't want any of that financial stuff. I just want to have a book. And so basically, I started helping people by saying yes. And so I didn't just say yes. I was like, well, I understand. Let me make sure I understand what you're asking. And then let me make sure I can help you do that. And when the answer was yes, I would say yes. So I honestly was doing both. And then through a series of events, everything tipped over. And one of the top acting coaches in New York City came to me with her husband with a book with 3 asks. And she said, I want my book on the shelf next to Stella Adler's. I want to do my book launch in the Drama Bookshop in Times Square. And I want merchandise in my studio to sell to go with my book, Star Power. I made all 3 of those things come true for her. And I never looked back. I left all the financial stuff behind and just kept answering the calls for the book help and started out of my living room.
Oh, I have to take a deep breath now because like that was a lot because like a lot of us we don't plan, we don't wake up, planning to be this. Ask me how my business has turned on a dime like I don't know 4 times since 2020, let's say.
Right.
So I know what this is like. It's calling the call's coming from people and you're answering it. Like you said yes. And then you were like, well, let's see if I can actually understand what you're asking for and whether I can actually deliver. And then
Correct.
you do deliver and even over deliver. And so more people keep coming to you. But it all starts with the fact that you put yourself out there in 2005. Now, the time frame, I just want to paint a picture here. Like, was there any self-publishing happening back then? Or
No, not
was it
really.
only through traditional?
Self was really the wild, wild west. And so part of, people were confused. They didn't know what to do. They felt like they would be subverted if they self published, but they didn't want to wait or they were getting rejected. And basically, I've now been doing this, Robbie, for 24 years. And so I was also a speaker. So I was out at all kinds of different writers' conferences for everybody, writers' conferences for genre fiction, and writers' conferences for self published authors, where I was actually talking about how you would do certain things depending on your path to publishing. So I actually help people with all 5 ways to publish because I actually have helped people do it all 5 ways. And I also know what to do. Ironically, not coincidentally, I ended up meeting and befriending many literary agencies and agency owners. And then about, I would say maybe 15 years ago now, I was at a conference where there was a film component as part of the conference. So I started meeting producers, and that was where my business started to open up to the film and TV and streaming, which came along obviously in recent years, but also and Broadway producers, because I'm just in different people's orbits. And so I meet them. And the best thing that we know is that I know that they only want to look at material they're going to represent or work with. So I never send them material that they wouldn't. And they know that about me. And so I become a trusted resource over the years because I understand what they do. I've even been asked to be an agent and said no, because I said, who's going to do what I do if I come and actually do that? Because I wouldn't be able to do it.
So I'm going to pin the fact that I'm going to come back to asking you what the 5 ways of publishing are. We'll get to that. Let's not forget. But I
Yep.
also wanted to say the skills that probably made you a good financial planner
Mhm.
are also the skills that make you good in this role, because it's like real estate, financial planners. These are entrepreneurial roles. Even if you're in a big company, you have to go fill your own list, your own book. You gotta find people. You gotta nurture sometimes really long-term relationships before there's a sale. Um, I think you have something dinging on your computer. If there's any way to mute the notification,
Oh,
let
sure.
me
Yep.
know. Thank you. So I mean, the skill set you already had and you had developed over time doing that other role. Can you speak to a little bit about how you were able to leverage those skills? I mean, I'm going to say networking in a sort of broad strokes way, but it's beyond that. It's not networking like going out places and handing out your business card in like this, spray and pray kind of way. It's understanding like where to find your people and how to nurture those relationships. You would never have survived into the other role if you hadn't developed that skill. How did that benefit you as you were trying to figure all this out? As you were, like you said, now you're at a conference. Now suddenly you're meeting film people. Now suddenly you're somewhere else. You're meeting literary agencies. Like that didn't just other people were there too. They didn't meet all those people.
They did it. It's so funny because for me, I actually have over 35 years of strategic planning and business development experience now. And before I was a financial planner, I actually worked in other industries like data mining and consumer products and entertainment. So I'm sort of all wrapped up in a bow with, I already know all of these different fields because I've worked with them. So something like Amazon ads, I know how to go in and I know how to data mine for keywords that other people don't know how to do. I understand the strategic absolute asset of planning what are you going to do to market your book, as opposed to just throwing spaghetti at the wall or trying to do so many things at once when you don't have the right things in place for something that you want to do. So for me, it really helps to bring all of the assets I have to benefit my clients. My clients know I am their protector. I am an advocate for them. And I am the biggest troubleshooter, I believe, in the publishing world, which is why I was dubbed the Dear Abby of publishing, because my literary agent colleagues at one of the conferences told me, they said, you know more than we do. And like, you solve so many things we wouldn't even like attempt to solve. And I have all kinds of people, my agent retired, my agent died. I mean, a lot of different things. I don't know if I should self-publish. My hybrid publisher screwed me over. What do I do now? Like my ghostwriter messed me up. Yeah, all kinds of things. They all get referred to me by people who know me or by clients. And they're like, you have to talk to Jennifer. It's always, that's why they came. And I'm like, okay, what are we dealing with? Like, set me up here, because for me, because I actually am so active in the industry, and I'm part of industry organizations too, and so that helps me. I'm a member of the Editorial Freelancers Association. I'm part of an elite group of women in the Women's Media Group and New York Women in Film and Television, among others, where I'm a platinum member there and lead the writers group for 10 years. For me, I know a lot of people. And so when somebody comes to me with something, those skill sets, whether it's, can you help me with my book? Where are you in the process is my next question. Mm-hmm. And then my next question is, what do you want? Because we as professionals, and I say we as all professionals, we can do whatever we do really well. But somebody who we're working with may not want all those things, or they may not want to do them, or they may not want to attempt to do them. Right. And so that want is a really important thing. That's something that I learned from those skills.
I have a similar thing when I do my, 30-minute complimentary call. First question is always kind of like, where are you in this process? Because that will gauge, I've had people who are like, light years away from getting started with the book. They just wanted to have a call. And I have other people who are like, oh, we're launching next week. And then I have to be like, are you launching next week or are you publishing next week? Like, help me understand, they have to break. I'd be like, tell me whether we have time here. Do you have control over that date? But the second question is I want to know what they're hoping the book will do for them. Because I specifically meet with business owners. I know you work with a wider array of authors, but I'm like, how is this book going to serve your business? And I'm flabbergasted by how many of them cannot coherently answer that question. And some of them are really far into the publishing process, or the book already exists and they're talking about a relaunch because the book failed to deliver. So, I know my kind of slice of the pie that I want to talk to, but I'm curious, where in that process do you meet people? Do you start with people when they're just ideating on a book? Do they have to have finished manuscripts? Are you helping them through the publication process? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of entry points here. Let's focus for a minute on the entrepreneurial author, the one who's writing a book to help them grow their business, speaking, coaching, and consulting. And then we'll talk about the other genres that you serve.
That sounds great. So for me, overall, I'm a horizontal consultant. So I help people with writing and editing. And I also help them with marketing before, during, and after they publish, publishing all 5 ways, and then getting beyond the page. What are you going to do? So if we take the avatar that you've given me, right, the business owner, entrepreneur, I work with a lot of CEOs. So they tend to come to me with their book or book ideas. And so their points of entry could be anywhere in there, everything from ideating to, I have a process I want to get out into the world, and basically have it be associated with my business. I want to use my book as a business card. I want to use it when I speak because I want to become a speaker, because I also help people become paid public speakers. That paid word is really important in there. And part of going beyond it is, especially in a business book, there are so many other opportunities that you have to make money beyond the book. So I'm also that person who is all about multiple income streams. So I understand the value of the book, and I understand the value of the content in the book. So I also help people get on Substack. Business owners are dynamically perfect for something like Substack, because I always say you have to know your audience first, and then you have to understand where they live, because they're not going to come to you. You have to go to them. So you can't just write a book. It's kind of like a tree falling in the forest, and we all know what that's about. This is not what you do with a book. You basically, once you decide, I'm going to write a book, right? Then you also have to tack on, and I'm going to be the face and the voice of that book, because it's you. It's all about you. I don't care if you're going to go to an annual sales meeting. There are going to be 4,000 people in the room, and they get a copy of your book that they bought with their ticket. That's all great. I help people do that. It's wonderful and it's great. But you can't expect to just publish a book and say, bingo, I'm an author now. That's fine. If your whole goal was just to tack on the word author, you've done it, and nobody can take that away from you. If you really want to do something, for me, writing is a gift. It's a gift you give somebody else. So when you're a business owner and you write a book, you're giving people a gift. You're giving them insight either into your business journey, into a methodology that you have, or you're actually shedding light on something that they want to do, right? Mm-hmm. And so basically, that book can lead you to many different avenues. But if your face and your voice is not going to go along with it, you're basically going to be a little frustrated and come to me, which they do. My book isn't moving. So, one of my clients is the chairman of the board and originating partner of the largest boutique law firm for real estate in New York City. And they have over 70 lawyers in that law firm. Okay. I always say, if I could help him complete his book with his busy schedule and an audiobook, use it, and his secretary was terrific, I can help anybody. And the reason why is people are so busy. That's why oftentimes CEO people come to me, because they're so busy and they're like, I know I wanna, but I'm not sure I can. And, that's one of the things that for a lot of people, it holds them back, but they could be sharing so much and gaining a lot.
I have like 5 questions for you. First, what are the 5 paths to publishing?
Sure. The 5 paths to publishing are either traditional or independent. So that means traditionally you would go and find representation through a literary agent. That literary agent would then go to a traditional publisher. However, you don't need a literary agent. You can also go to small, medium, and large publishing houses. They happen to publish fewer books. They also have a P&L. So the same things are required. Now, if you are a nonfiction writer, which business owners often are, then you have to have documents. You have to have a query letter, and you have to have a rockin' book proposal that shows more than your book. It shows your knowledge about the marketplace, and you have to have a platform. You can't say the book is the beginning. That was where we were 30 years ago, where you basically published a book and then built out your platform. Now flip that over, where you basically have to have people who know who you are, where you can prove to a publishing house that you can sell. And by the way, don't say to me or you or anybody else that you're going to self-publish first and then you're going to go get an agent. Because if you do that and you don't sell in the first 3 months, then you actually have less of a chance at all, if at all, getting an agent. You're better off unpublished going to an agent.
I actually pause on that point, because I've had the same conversation with people, because I'm like, I don't have the hopes of doing traditionally published. It's not actually a goal given my like strategy for my business. It doesn't make sense. But if it was, then it would be really critical to have a particularly good plan around that first book if I self-published it. And I have a feeling most people don't even get close to the numbers they think they can reach on their own. Like, it's a ridiculous notion that the amount of books they think they can move in a year versus the actual average, it's like a shocking it's just the numbers are so disparate. So don't rush to just hit publish just to prove you're an author, to then think it'll help your case, right? It will not. It could actually be a big mar against this otherwise maybe decent proposal for
Yeah.
you.
And the thing is, you want to wind out the agents or the publisher houses first. There are specific business publishing houses. I know them. I've taken clients to them. They've gotten published through them traditionally. So, you really want to be wise. Like, one of my clients, I'll just tell you one of my troubleshooting stories for a 20-second thumbnail. One of my clients is the Grammy Award-winning co-producer of Fleetwood Mac, nonfiction, right? He had an agent before I met him, and that agent doctored the documents. He actually took the book to auction, got a 6-figure advance. Well, when the manuscript was delivered, because it was also doctored, remember, his book was about Fleetwood Mac. It was about the Rumors album, and it was making rumors, and it was the story behind the making of that album. Well, he was 27 years old, and Wally Heider's hand-selected him to co-produce the Rumors album. And he wrote about his experience doing that, from going from a music engineer to a music producer, and it was really a great book. I got introduced to him by a Hollywood producer that I knew and who knew him and said, you have to help him, right? The same thing. Well, the reason I'm telling you this is because I took over the project, fired everybody on his team, hired all new people, helped him get a new agent with a 4-figure advance to help him with the suit against him, got the book published through a new editor at a different publishing house, and became his national book marketing campaign manager for the first year of that book to make sure that it survived. Now, guess what happened?
What happened?
If anybody saw the Tony Award-winning show Stereophonic, they stole the book for that show. And because I told you I protect my clients real well, right? He sued them. And last December 2024, he won the settlement from them. Because I actually was sitting in the seats with my husband going, damn, this story sounds so familiar. And actually at the intermission, we looked it up and I was like, oh my God, there's a lawsuit and everything. So, when you're doing something, traditional or not, make sure you do the right things. Now, on the independent side, I help people self-publish and electronically book publish. And I also help them audio publish. And one of the reasons why is you have to know your rights. And when you self-publish, you have to be smart about it. I get people oftentimes to say, I don't know anything about this. Well, there's lots of creative things that can be done. We produce very professional covers. We also work with very high-level interior designs. We worked with children's book authors as an example, where the illustrator was former Disney illustrator, very high-quality work. Plus, one of the things about self-publishing is, because you asked me earlier, it has come way to the front where you are no longer looked down upon for self-publishing. I have a doctor right now who we are racing to publish to get out by the end of this month. Why? Her book is about AI. She doesn't have time to wait for traditional publishing to say yes, because AI changes every day, right? And so her concepts that are in that book need to be out.
I have to say that my third book was about technology, because my third book is about leveraging Zoom to design these inclusive, engaging, transformative online experiences.
Right.
And I wrote the book basically between December and January. Right. And it was out in February. The arc was in people's hands in February. And, we built up the launch team, like while I was writing the book, basically, I was building the launch team. Because in January, I don't ever want to do this again. This is not a goal of mine, but I was writing chapters, giving it to the editor, getting them back, finalizing them, giving them to the person who was doing the formatting, who was a friend of the editor. So we were all working collectively. She was giving me back things to review, and I was saying that looks final. In the same, I thought I was kind of done with the writing in December, and I wrote another 35,000 words in January. But the book was still in people's hands by mid-February. And while I was writing it, the location of the buttons would move.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. Like, I wrote a book that was about strategy and purpose first design, and like there's bigger picture stuff than where the buttons are, which is important because I knew it was going to change. But the idea that I could wait to how long to take to find an agent, how long for an agent to shop an idea,
right,
how long for the idea to finally be published, right? And like nothing, like the world just doesn't operate at that speed anymore. So I could see why there's a lot more options out there, but also overwhelmed, which is why meeting someone like you who can meet some, like the author or the writer where they are and walk them through this range of things is useful, because you could get really stymied. But I do still think people have this notion that the only real route is traditional. Like, I sometimes do talk to some prospective authors who seem really kind of stuck on that idea. And as you're saying, it's really evolved. And I'm like, well, how much time do you want to go down that path? Like, because I don't publish people. Like, my job is not that at all. So I'm just like, all right, well, like, are you willing to wait a few years to see whether you make that work or not? And if they say yes in 3 years and it takes 2 more years for the book to come out, do you feel okay with a 5-year timeline? I mean, gosh, my business has changed 4 times in 5 years. Like, I can't even imagine what that would do. Like, it works if you're like a big brand name. I could see it working because you have an established track record. You're not going to change your company. Like that. Sure, there are ways where it works, but for a lot of us, we're scrappier than that. And we don't have the audience. Like you were saying, build the platform. Can you give me an example of what is required or expected about what is a platform? I mean, I have 11,000 people on LinkedIn, and do I have a platform? Like, what's a platform in the case of like, are you a book we would actually hedge a bet on and like be willing to publish?
So I get asked that question a lot, and I teach it a lot at conferences. Actually.
Yeah, I imagine.
Because platform really is what have you done and what have you done for me lately, right? So for some people, it's really about, well, I have a website and I have a blog and I have followers, or fans or friends, right? But when you think about a publisher, I want you to think about that big giant building on Fifth Avenue or Broadway, okay? And if you come to New York, you'll see the publishers are dotted all the way from Tribeca up to Columbus Circle, okay? What do they do? I always ask my clients to put their publisher hat on as a business person and understand that if I get 2 books that come to me with 2 different proposals, and one book has 11,000 followers on LinkedIn and no other presence online except a website and maybe a blog, and then I get another one that has a presence on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram with lots of zeros of followers. Plus, I also get somebody who has a YouTube channel, a podcast, and they also are someone who writes articles. Either they have become like part of the Forbes coaching group, they write for Entrepreneur Magazine, there's someone like me who writes for HuffPost Books, something else off their actual website. I also help people, as I mentioned, with Substack, because Substack is a great place where you also can find people who actually, I know a lot of people who get their news there. They don't even watch anything else. Their journalists have moved there, and so have journalists. So, part of it is, who would you bet on? If you had $100,000 to put into a book, because that's what it takes them to pay for real estate, employees, paper, production, distribution, sales force. Okay, so you're the publisher, right? Which book are you going to choose? And more than likely, if you were a business person, you would probably pick person B, because nobody knows what the next best-selling book is going to be. However, one of the things we know is that that person that can move things, and A, knows their market, and B, knows their marketing, because they're already doing it. They've already created a platform, right, where they actually have fans, followers, listeners, and friends. It gives them an opportunity to say, I can move that book. Now, one of the things I also help people on the self-published side do is get book blurbs. And book blurbs are really important because those people might also be well-known people who can actually come with some zeros for them to share the book. So I'll give you an example. I helped one person who actually had a self-published professional book, and we actually had someone who did the forward who had millions of followers. Okay. So he was also going to promote the book. And so when you start to combine those things, this other person, the author, didn't have a following. And so there were a few other things with that book that basically agents were like, I can't wrap my head around this.
Mm-hmm.
And so that book pivoted to self-publishing because, again, it needed to get out. But at the same time, it wasn't a rush to get out type of book. But basically, even with all of that powerhouse, plus we had other blurbs from others who had larger followings, they weren't going to take it because of the other elements that they couldn't wrap their head around, which was fine. And that was at that time. So it didn't mean that he couldn't publish, because there were millions of people on Reddit that actually wanted to read about the topics in his book.
Right.
They're not. So
yeah,
there really was a market and is a market for that book. And he has gone on to create a podcast and all of these other things. So when you're actually putting a book out there, what do you want is really important, because many people call me a magician. Well, I'm not really a magician. I do have a magic wand, but I actually know that when you're going to do something, there are certain things you need to put inside the book that drive people to where you want them to go. Mm-hmm. Second, the other thing that's important is you have to make the book work for you. So if you're actually going to give them a process, create resources, and then create a squeeze page, create a newsletter. A lot of people basically say, well, I don't need a newsletter. I don't know what I'm going to put in a newsletter. And you know what? That's a big number for us when we're actually looking on the other side, looking in, saying, oh, wow, look at that. They have so many thousands of people on their newsletter. Oh, well, that changes the picture here, right? So there's lots of different ways. I call the platform, quite frankly, Robbie, a spider web. Because a spider web traps the fly in it somewhere, right? And then what happens? The spider actually wraps it up and makes it all nice and cozy, right? We won't talk about the next part. But what really happens is you want to basically have a place for your reader to go that they can constantly connect with you, but also it's where they go. Don't make them try to go over here, because they won't.
Right. It's the natural path. I want to underscore two things you said and then follow up on that last point. One is you said it was a professionally done self-published book. And I just want to underscore the word professionally there, because what I say is like a self-published book should have no tells. Correct. That it's a self-published book. Like if you're really think it's important, this is like your business. And I had to learn that, of course, all the hard way. My first budget for my book back in 2017 was I didn't have one. And I put together some money and I used some Upwork people or whatever the company was that I was using. And I had to do so much research, because when I said to the woman, I don't want it to look self-published, she's like, what do you mean? And my wife, who loves fonts, she's a really creative design person. I was like, why? I have this like galley, given to me, on screen, and I'm like, why does this not look like a book? My wife walks by, she's like, why is it Arial? It's the print version. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, it's the default font, like. So I had to learn about gutter sizes. I had to learn what cover, like what do you put on the back, how to make a barcode that has the price built in. I mean, there's all these tells. Like, so this is partly why I think the hybrid option is really useful, because those people have figured all that stuff out. But if you are going to go your own route, you've got to have trusted people. And I think the mention of you being a magician was the second thing I wanted to say, is that magicians had a rabbit already in the hat. It is about advanced planning. Right? The hat doesn't actually come out of nowhere. I mean, the rabbit doesn't come out of nowhere. The rabbit was in the hat. That was planned for. Same way you work with an author, you've got to plan the results. Like, you have to have a pathway from the book to the offer after. And that's a piece that, like, I want to now say thank you, because one of the reasons I pulled people together for the Biz Book Pub Hub, which is you're here because you're one of our premier hub partners. I felt like there wasn't a space. Well, I both felt there wasn't a space, and I did research calls for 2 months to confirm there was not a referral network specifically for people serving what I will call entrepreneurial authors, those authors writing books for their businesses, speaking, coaching, consulting, thought leaders, those kinds of people. And they're just like, we all are kind of out there operating on our own, and now we're collectively, we know each other, we can refer to each other. And your work that you just described there about helping people make sure that they write the right book, that it has all the right, the landing page like offers in there, and the resources are already built out, and the website exists, and it makes my job as a launch strategist infinitely easier versus the person who just just threw together like 14 blog posts and called it a day. You know what I mean? Like, they're told they can do that, and they're like, oh, I ran it through AI. I'm like, oh, great. Like, this is not a book. This is like a collection. This is like me reading a journal. Like, I, by the way, don't read their books ahead of time to vet them. Like, that's not my job. But I ask them pressure questions around, how is this book fitting with a business plan? So you, like, being a referral partner makes so much sense, because you're helping them think big picture. And I'm curious, why are you part of the hub? What's been like to meet other hub partners? I mean, you've been in this industry, a lot of people. Is there something that distinguishes the space, like, from these other places you're convening? Because you're clearly you're in a lot of different spaces. What's similar and what's different about the Biz Book Pub Hub? We've got, the hub partners, we have the author and writer community, podcast. Like, tell me a little bit about your reflections on this space.
So, the interesting thing about the space is, for me, for most writers, I'm the quarterback of their project. I'm not the captain. Notice how I didn't say that. I always tell them they are the captain. They have to be the owner and the captain and the face of that project. However, I always tell writers that writing is not a solo sport. Neither is publishing, and neither is distribution or marketing. So they need to bring on a team that's important. Now, I do manuscript assessments. I do other types of assessments. And then sometimes people will go on and they will get published by a publisher, right? That's somebody recent that I'm describing. I did an assessment. I said, this is not a book. You mentioned your blog example. I said, this is a great idea and it's a great outline for a book, but it's not a book. I said, you need to go back. It wasn't from blogs. It was fiction. And I said, go back and now do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He did that, came back for another assessment. And I basically said, okay. And he said, okay, what's the next step? Right? Well, lo and behold, while we were talking about the next step, a publisher came in and asked him for the book. Bingo. Right? And so part of it is, when you actually are around professionals and that you work with writers, one of the things that you want to be able to do is bring in the right resources at the right time. So for marketing, for example, I do a marketing strategic platform planning consulting service. Okay. I plan out that book's marketing for 18 months, not 3 months, 18 months. And it's really important that you don't pay people until they actually are going to do something you need. Right. And so understanding the roles and responsibilities of what each person is going to do on that team is just as important as when you're going to do that. Right. So, like, I have a former professional NHL hockey player that I'm working with right now, and his book is written under my watch. And it's also, we have a membership community that's being built. We also have a book that's going to be produced at the right time, a podcast tour that's going to be in the spring. Like, if you don't understand what you're building for what's coming next, and you don't have the site 200 yards ahead of you, that's why you have something like the hub, where you have resources. Sometimes they're needed right away. Sometimes they're not needed right away. But sometimes a person gets to pivot. Oh, I don't want to traditionally publish anymore. Now I want to do this. And it's like, okay, well, let's figure that out. But I always tell people, and that I tell people, everybody, you are 100% responsible for your marketing. I don't care how you publish. Doesn't matter. You're still going to have to do it. And so when you actually start looking out into the field, I'm going to say it, there are a lot of shysters in this industry. And one of the good things, I always say, I work with the good guys, because I don't want my clients to be in a position with the people that come to me and say, I spent my life savings, I mortgaged my house. And I'm like, I'm a former certified financial planner. Oh my God, why? Right? It's not the right thing. And it really bothers me a lot. But the thing that I know is when I'm introducing people to web designers, as an example, I don't do web design, right? We do requests for proposals, RFPs. In the business world, you know what that is. And basically I tell people, okay, let's get a proposal. Then let's have you vet them and talk to them and see who resonates and who listens to you. And then you choose somebody. It's like, most people, they know some of these things, but I always say, if you knew what to do, you wouldn't be calling me.
Well, I also think that they may know it in another part of their life, like when they're on the job, they know this, but they're emotionally invested and they skip a lot of these steps and they're rushed in excitement to get something done. And they don't listen to that voice that says, like, get 3 bids, ask for references. I mean, part of the creating the hub is that I have vetted the hub partners. This is the curated directory of experts who support entrepreneurs through writing, editing, publishing, launching, and marketing a book. And so I know they're not going to steal your life savings and like produce nothing. And it is such an awful minimum to have, but it is really necessary to create a little bit of a space where you can feel comfortable that you're going to look at the list and talk to these 3 people and at least know that, like, that these are legit people who have done this work already. And more than anything, understand more than you may do the audience that you're trying to reach. They may have other examples of the clients they've worked with. And that piece you just said about you are 100% in charge of your marketing. I always joke that, a publisher's job is in their name. They are there to publish. Like, that is their main job. Literally, that's all they have to do. They don't have to do anything else. Now, some of them will. Some of them may have an upsell. Some of them may have a partner sister organization they refer you to for a kickback. Some will sell you a PR campaign with press releases that you don't need because you can't capitalize on it because you don't have the platform set up. Some will sell you Facebook ad experts when you don't even know what you're converting on that landing page. Like, you don't know the quality of the marketing. You are in charge ultimately, which is why even if you're self-publishing, I really do recommend making your own book proposal, because it does force you to face that reality. How will I move books? And I don't mean individual copies, because I only focus on individual copies during the launch sequence, specifically between the publication date and 2.5, 3 weeks later, the launch, which is the public date. That in between soft launch is when we're focusing getting reviews from the launch team. And yes, we'd like them to buy the book, so it's a verified purchase review. But beyond that, what are your book sale opportunities? How are we going to get you out into the world in a bigger way? And those are the conversations. I think they're so in the minutia of just trying to write the book, they can't see around the corner. So meeting with folks like you who have been there, done that, got the t-shirt, went back, did it 4 other ways, got those t-shirts too. There's ups and downs. And I don't know, I think that people think that they want a golden ticket when they get a certain path. Like, let's say they really want a traditional and they're like, Willy Wonka moment, I got the golden ticket. But then reality sets in. Like, if you got an advance, you may never see more money than that if you don't sell the minimum number of books to meet that. Like, that happens a lot. Only if, like, a small percentage of the books, and these are professionals choosing the books, what percentage of a publishing house, books each year make it quote unquote big? Like, it's not very high, right?
No, it's actually not. 80% of books that are published by a publisher fail on a P&L. So it's those 20% of the books that actually sell, that pay all those salaries, that pay those leases or real estate payments, and all the other pieces that are going on. So
4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 don't meet,
right.
with all the gatekeeping, with all the requirements that you have to jump through, with all the minimum platform sizes, with all the years of collective years experience. Makes me think that these publishing houses should be like in the Midwest, in like a tiny little town, paying really, I mean, these days, why are they paying, Fifth Avenue prices?
Down Fifth Avenue, they're down Broadway.
I know, while you walk past them. It's very impressive buildings, but we have to pay for all that. Wow. Okay. So I'm just thrilled to introduce people to you. I just want to run through the litany of topics you cover, because we really focus on this piece, but you also do children's books, which to me, it's a whole nother can of worms. And a lot of people do not go to someone who's never done that and have them publish your book. Like, you have to go to someone who's experienced, because there's too many missteps that I've heard about. Fiction, so all kinds of genres of fiction, it sounds like, and you have lots of connection to that world. Getting books into other mediums. So that's something I think very few people have as much experience as you do. Translating books, finding script writers, getting it on plays, books, into movies, all that stuff. And do you provide legal counsel? Do you have someone on staff who does that? Or like, how are you helping people through the legalese of all of this? Because you mentioned contracts a little bit earlier.
Yep. So when I actually have someone with a contract, sometimes they want to talk to me first to confirm their misgivings about it. So I actually offer office hours, and office hours appointments are where people buy my time and they choose in priority order what they want me to talk with them about. So it's almost like the professor in college, where after class, you kind of go and you ask your questions, right? It's a very simple format, no obligation for anything. But once I do that, if somebody wants to talk to me, or sometimes I'll tell them, you can certainly do that and you can talk to me, but I already know what you need, and I really want to refer you to somebody that I know can handle this. So I know other publishing attorneys. I also know entertainment attorneys that handle more than just publishing. They also handle film and other rights in the entertainment field. Remember, your book is called IP, intellectual property, and that intellectual property has to be preserved and protected, kind of like the story I mentioned. And so part of that is making sure that you don't just wing it. And I must say, can I please say it before we end? Please don't use ChatGPT as your attorney. It is not that wise. You need somebody, a human, that actually understands the laws of the land that you're in and that we're in, and understand how that contract works. How has it been written? And if you need changes made to that contract, remember, you may also need an attorney to actually come and negotiate that for you, because sometimes there are publisher owners that will not listen to you, or will say, take it or leave it. And basically you can say, well, I have a great project. You're interested in it. Why don't we set up a call with my attorney? that sounds different to someone, and someone may say yes because they're interested in the property. Or can they mark it up? That's something you don't want to be doing.
Right.
That's something that you want someone who is trained to understand the language. Every word in a contract means something. So it's really like playing with fire. And that's why I say these large language models, they're not attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to fill out forms as robots. That's fine. They can
Yeah.
put your name on as many boxes as you want. But, I actually work with a lot of subcontractors. And the reason why is because I don't want to charge people, and I don't want people to be paying for resources when they're not going to use them
Mm-hmm.
right away or at that time, or they're not going to use them for 6 months. But I always say to people, when especially I see red flags, have you actually spoken to an attorney yet to
Right.
review your agreement,
Thank
your
you.
memoir?
Yeah.
Are you
I mean,
writing about other people? Oh my God.
there's another big one, right? Like memoirs need to have a whole different conversation. So I love that you're like this concierge that is directing people to the right resource at the right time. How can people find you and follow your work?
Thank you. I actually am exactly what I'm telling other people they need to be doing. I'm everywhere. So my website is yourbookisyourhook.com. There you can see a video about everything that I do, as well as all the information. But you can also join me on LinkedIn and follow me. I also have a LinkedIn newsletter there. You can join as well. I also am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I'm really everywhere that I want people to be, because I know that's where they're going to go. Is
Brilliant.
they're going to go in their own backyard and they're going to look around for resources. And like you, I give people 20 minutes of my time when they complete my consulting application, so I can learn more about your project and where you are. And then I give you 20 minutes of my time for free.
Brilliant. Okay, we're going to put all these resources on the website at bizbookpubhub.com. The show notes there. You'll also find all show notes from all the other episodes we've had, and we've had quite a few, including all the curated directory of experts we mentioned earlier. You'll find all of them at bizbookpubhub.com. This events that I host. So every single month, there's a free virtual networking event. There's the Kindle flash sales that I organize 3 times a year, and soon to be released a blog. So we're about to start hosting blog posts written by our hub partners. So go check all that out at bizbookpubhub.com. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a very rich and deep conversation about the world of publishing. Appreciate you being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And I will hope to see everybody this month. I'm actually going to be talking about Amazon ads.